Everything begins with assumption, not because it is wishful thinking, but because it is law. The assumption you live by determines the conditions you walk through. The world around you does not shape your beliefs. Your beliefs shape the world around you. If you assume you are unloved, unchosen, or incomplete, then your life will obey that assumption with precision. But if you dare to assume you are already in a loving relationship, even before you see evidence of it, then everything in your world must realign itself to confirm that assumption. The outer is servant to the inner. Always. This is not metaphor, it is function. Life functions according to consciousness. It does not ask what you wish for. It moves in response to what you accept as true. To act as if you're already in a loving relationship means to consciously step into a state where you no longer seek love because love is already yours. You speak from it. You walk from it. You make decisions from the certainty that someone loves you now. It is not pretending in the shallow sense. It is possessing in the spiritual sense. You're not lying to yourself. You are agreeing with truth before it reveals itself to your senses. There is no greater error than believing that circumstances must change before you can change your concept of self. That is inversion. That is slavery to appearances. But when you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, when you act as though it is already true, you invert the order. You become master. You lift your eyes from what is and fix them on what is being created. The relationship you desire already exists in a higher plane of consciousness. It is yours the moment you claim it. The bridge of life will carry you from the current state to the one you have assumed, and it will do so through a chain of natural events, each one perfectly orchestrated by the unseen hand of awareness. To test this truth, begin where you are in this very moment. Declare mentally, I am now in a loving relationship. And do not just say the words, feel them. Let the meaning of those words soak through your being. What would it feel like to be held, to be chosen, to be wanted? Not in the future, but now. How would you sit? How would you breathe? How would you speak to yourself in your private moments? Let your inner atmosphere match that reality. Then live from that place. When the mind wanders to doubt or past experience, gently bring it back. Remind yourself, this is who I am now. The world will resist at first, it always does, but persist in your assumption. It will bend. All creation begins with assumption, because assumption is the seed. Like a seed planted in the soil, the assumption appears small and invisible. It is buried in silence. No one sees it but you. But what you plant in consciousness must grow. The law does not discriminate. It does not decide what is worthy. It simply obeys. If you plant the seed of being unloved, that too will grow. But if you plant the seed of already being loved, already being in relationship, then that too must grow. The outer world is the harvest of the inner state. There is no escape from this truth, and no one is exempt from it. You do not need evidence to begin. You need only faith in the unseen. For what is seen was made from what is not seen. You may look around and find no sign of a partner, no text messages, no dates, no names, but that is not your concern. Your concern is only this. What am I assuming about myself? Am I assuming that I am loved or unloved? Am I assuming that I am chosen or rejected? Am I assuming that my relationship is now or somewhere far away? This inner inquiry is the root of all manifestation. The one who assumes correctly does not need to chase or plead. The right state draws the right people. The state is the magnet. It holds everything in place. You are not waiting for love to come to you. Love is waiting for you to become the version of yourself that has already received it. That version exists now, in consciousness. Step into it. Wear it like a garment. Let your words reflect it. Let your mood reflect it. Let your daily living carry the fragrance of it. When you assume you are in a loving relationship, your world will begin to conform in subtle and often imperceptible ways. People will treat you differently. You will notice new interactions. A door opens here, a conversation starts there, and suddenly the improbable begins to unfold. This is not coincidence, it is consequence. Every assumption is a prayer, a command, a blueprint. The moment you dwell in the feeling that love is already yours, you shift the timeline. You are no longer hoping, you are possessing. And that state of possession impresses itself upon the subconscious mind. Once impressed, it must express, and it will do so in the most natural manner imaginable. You will look back and say, of course it happened this way, but do not be fooled by the casual appearance of events. The root was in the moment you assumed. So go now into the silence. Close the door of doubt and enter the chamber of imagination. See yourself not as wanting but as having, not as seeking but as being. Assume the end and walk in that end. Love is not far, it is within. It responds to the image you hold. Begin there and persist. The rest will follow. The assumption is the cause. The outer world is the echo. Imagination is not a shadow of reality, it is the cause of it. Everything you behold, every person you meet, every situation you pass through, all originate from the silent, persistent images you entertain within yourself. You might think your imagination is just a daydream, a soft distraction from the so-called real world, but this misunderstanding is the root of human limitation. For what you imagine, especially with feeling, becomes the blueprint from which your world is formed. Imagination is the workshop of creation, the sacred chamber in which you sculpt the very world you live in. If you are not consciously directing it, it is still working, just in ways that reflect your fears instead of your desires. When you long for a loving relationship and continue to dwell in thoughts of lack, absence, and waiting, you are unconsciously imagining the very thing you do not want. The workshop of imagination is still at work, and it will deliver faithfully what it is fed. To act as if you are already in a loving relationship is to give your imagination new material to mold into experience. You must enter into a scene that implies your desire is already fulfilled. Not tomorrow, not someday, now. And you must dwell there, not visit it as a guest, but live in it as its rightful owner. Imagination is not passive. It is a power that operates with precision. If you imagine clearly and with deep feeling that you are already in the relationship you desire, and you return to that image daily, you will awaken within yourself a new state of being. That state, once internalized, becomes magnetized. It draws to itself everything necessary for its own realization. The partner, the encounters, the conversations, the gestures, all emerge naturally from the seed you plant in imagination. Nothing forced, nothing chased, only what was first imagined made visible in form. One must not confuse imagination with idle fantasy. There is a marked difference between hoping something might be and knowing it already is. When you imagine yourself in love, truly in love, you must let that scene carry weight. You must let it feel like memory. Imagine walking with your partner, feeling the warmth of their hand. Imagine the conversations you share, the laughter that fills your home, the quiet glances of understanding. Feel what it's like to be seen and cherished. Do not create these images from a place of lack. Create them from a place of identification. You are not watching yourself love. You are being the one who is already loved. That is the secret. The moment you imagine from the end, you are no longer desiring, you are embodying. The scene you construct is not for amusement, but for implantation. Once the seed is planted, it must grow. All that is required is faithfulness. If you return each night before sleep to the scene of the wish fulfilled, and you do so with a soft and genuine conviction, then you are impressing the subconscious with a new pattern. And the subconscious, which governs the outworking of reality, accepts that impression as fact. Then, through means invisible to your logic, your world begins to rearrange. Often the mind will argue, but it's not real. And that is precisely the moment you must persist. For all things are unreal until they are made real by attention. Your present surroundings were once nothing but unseen possibilities. Now they are solidified only because you gave them belief. You are always imagining, whether for good or ill. If your imagination is filled with loneliness, rejection, or waiting, then so too will be your life. But if your imagination is saturated with joy, connection, and shared love, then your life will bend to that image. The outer must conform to the inner. When you understand this, you take your power back. You no longer wait for the world to give you signs. You become the originator of signs. You no longer chase validation. You create the condition of already having it. That which you accept in imagination becomes law. When you walk as if someone already loves you, and when you feel that truth in the sanctuary of your own mind, your entire posture changes. You speak differently. You move differently. And others will respond to that change. They may not know why they feel drawn to you, but something in your energy announces, I am already loved. And the world will affirm what you inwardly claim. This is why imagination is not simply creative. It is causative. To imagine is to command. To persist in imagination is to shape destiny. The relationship you long for does not lie in someone else's hands. It lies within your ability to assume it and feel it before it becomes visible. You do not need to control people or manipulate circumstances. You need only to create the scene that implies your desire is fulfilled and live there. Let imagination become your daily dwelling place. Visit it so often that it becomes more real than your doubts. Every great love story began as an idea in someone's heart. Every union, every kiss, every embrace, all began first in the unseen. Your life is no exception. Begin now. Close your eyes. See the one who adores you. Hear their voice calling you beloved. Walk beside them in the world you choose to imagine. And do not let appearances shake you. Let the world adjust, as it always does, to the vision you hold in mind. Feeling is the only substance reality knows. You may declare words 1,000 times, you may repeat affirmations until your voice fades, but unless those words are clothed with genuine feeling, they do not take root. The creative force of the universe does not respond to empty syllables. It responds to the emotion behind them. If you wish to see a loving relationship manifest in your outer world, you must not only think of it, you must feel it as if it already surrounds you. That feeling is the very mold of your experience. The law does not concern itself with appearances. It responds only to the state you inhabit internally. And that state is generated by your sustained feeling. What you feel inwardly, you create outwardly. It is not enough to wish to be loved. You must feel what it is like to be loved. Right now, in the present moment, in the quiet chambers of your imagination, you must accept the emotional reality of already being in that relationship. What does it feel like to be held, to be wanted without question, to know that someone chooses you completely, without hesitation, day after day? That is not a feeling reserved for later. It is the vibration you must dwell in now. The world outside you is simply the echo of what you feel most deeply and consistently within. Every event in life is the external projection of a dominant internal state, and every internal state is defined not by fleeting thoughts, but by steady emotion. If you carry the vibration of being alone, the world mirrors solitude. If you radiate the warmth and security of being adored, then that reflection must meet you in kind. Feelings are creative commands. You may feel unworthy, and so life will offer you confirmations of your unworthiness. But if you change that feeling, if you anchor yourself in the emotion of worthiness and connection, then reality must also change to reflect the new pattern. This is not a matter of trying harder. It is a matter of feeling deeper. You do not beg for love in this method. You embody it. You do not seek outward signs to prove that you are chosen. You become so saturated with the emotional certainty of love that the world begins to respond as if it were already true, because it is. In your emotional state, it is done. The creative act is not when the partner appears. The act is completed the moment you feel the relationship as real and dwell in that emotional place without needing to see immediate proof. There is a silent intelligence in feeling. You may not know the how, but the feeling itself carries the path. When you assume the emotion of being in a loving relationship, your body language changes, your decisions change, your presence shifts. You begin to carry yourself as someone who is fulfilled, not someone who is searching. And this change in posture and energy rearranges the experiences you attract. People are drawn to those who are already complete within. Your feeling state becomes your signal, your atmosphere. It speaks louder than words. To feel is to fuse. The moment you truly feel yourself in union with another, you begin to fuse with that version of self who lives in that reality. And that version already exists. You are not creating something from nothing. You are selecting from infinite possibilities. The feeling is what locks in the selection. Just as a radio tunes into a frequency, so your emotional state tunes into a timeline. If you feel neglected, you live in the channel of neglect. If you feel adored, you live in the channel of affection. The content of your world flows from the vibration you choose. But this feeling must be sustained. You cannot dip into it occasionally and expect permanent transformation. You must make it your new normal. Every morning, wake up and ask yourself, not what will happen today, but how would I feel if I were already in love? Answer that question not with words, but with mood. Let that mood be your guide. If you begin to feel doubt, return to your scene. Return to your place of inner certainty. Remind yourself that reality is delayed feeling. It only appears after the emotional blueprint is complete. The process is simple but not easy. The mind wants to cling to evidence. The heart must lead instead. When you walk down the street, walk as though someone loves you. When you eat, eat with the quiet joy of someone cherished. When you go to sleep, let your final thoughts be of the arms that hold you. Not in memory and not in fantasy, but in the now of inner reality. The deeper you feel it, the quicker it must reflect. There is no delay to the law, only delay in your decision to feel it fully. So you must become emotionally faithful, not faithful to appearances, but to the invisible certainty of your desire already fulfilled. You do not try to manipulate people or events. You simply remain in the feeling of already being loved, already being chosen. And from that place, life begins to mirror your inner conviction. You don't chase the mirror to change its reflection. You change your expression, and the mirror complies. So too does reality. The loving relationship you desire is not out there waiting. It is in here now. In your heart, in your imagination, in your feeling. It is yours the moment you claim it emotionally. That is the secret. That is the power. All you must do is feel it real and remain there. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are conscious of being. This is the great misunderstanding that prevents so many from receiving the love they seek. People believe desire is enough, that longing or wishing for something should compel the universe to respond. But desire without identity is powerless. The Lord does not give based on desire. It gives based on state. Your life is not a reflection of your hopes. It is a reflection of your consciousness. You may want a loving relationship, but if deep within you are still identifying as lonely, unwanted, or waiting, then it is that internal state that life must reflect. This is why changing your state of being is the beginning of all manifestation. The world is neutral until you impress it with meaning. When you become conscious of being loved, the world begins to echo that truth. It is not a matter of doing more. It is a matter of being different. The self that is loved and chosen already exists as a state. You are not creating it from scratch. You are selecting it. Just as you tune to a radio station, you tune to the version of yourself who already dwells in love. And once tuned, you begin to hear the music of that reality. There is a version of you right now who is adored, a version who is cherished beyond words, a version who wakes up each day with someone who smiles just to see you. That version does not live in the future. That version exists in consciousness. When you shift your inner awareness to align with that identity, life begins to shift around you. People appear, conversations change, circumstances reorganize. This is not magic, this is law. And it begins not by wishing to be loved, but by identifying as one who already is. The most direct way to change your outer life is to change the concept you hold of yourself. You must ask, what am I accepting as true about me? Do I walk through life believing I am lovable? Or do I silently rehearse old assumptions of being ignored or overlooked? These silent identities are seeds. They root in the subconscious and produce fruit in the physical. To attract love, you must be the one who is loved within, not just occasionally, but consistently. You must wear that identity like your skin. It must become second nature. Acting as if you are already in a loving relationship is not a performance for others. It is not pretending to fool the world. It is a reprogramming of your inner being. You begin to feel your way into a new concept of self, and from that concept, you think differently, you respond differently, you radiate a new energy. The world simply follows the blueprint you give it. It has no will of its own. It is a mirror, and it reflects not your wishes, but your assumptions. You must learn to embody the feeling of the one who is already in love. That embodiment is your declaration to the universe. You speak most loudly with your state, not your words. And the state is not what you say, it's what you believe yourself to be. You may say, I want love, but if within you is the chronic emotion of being alone, then that is the vibration being broadcast. You must go beyond words. You must dwell in the atmosphere of already having what you seek. It is not about striving nor forcing outcomes. It is about surrendering to the state of being that matches your desire. When you shift identity, action becomes effortless. You will be moved by inspiration rather than obligation. Your decisions will flow from alignment, and because you are now acting from the end, every step becomes a bridge to its fulfillment. This is why inner transformation always precedes outer change. You must become it before you can see it. Your relationships mirror your relationship with yourself. If you feel unworthy, life will bring you reflections of that unworthiness. But if you inhabit the state of being cherished, then everything around you begins to affirm that truth. The partner you seek is already connected to you through this inner alignment. They are drawn not by your effort, but by your vibration, and that vibration is the natural result of who you believe yourself to be. Do not look outside to measure your progress. Appearances may delay, but reality responds instantly to inner change. The outer world takes time only because it moves at the speed of matter. But the shift begins the moment you shift within. Persist in that new self-concept. Wake up each morning and remind yourself, I am already loved. I am already in a beautiful relationship. Not because you see it, but because you are now being it. When you consistently return to that awareness, the old patterns begin to dissolve. The identity of being alone loses its grip. The memories of past rejection lose their power. You begin to think from your future, not your history. And from that place, life cannot help but reflect the new you, the one who already has what they once only longed for, the one who now walks in the world from completion, not craving. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are aware of being. Change what you are aware of being, and the world must follow. The world is not deciding your fate, you are. The self you now accept is the only cause. All else is effect. The power is not in the future, it is not in the past, it is only ever in the present. The now is the creative moment, the only place where assumption can take root and imagination can act. To live now, as if you are already in a loving relationship, is to bring the future into the present, to collapse time into a single point of power. You do not wait for your outer world to approve your desire before claiming it. You make the claim now, in consciousness, and live from it as if it were already done. Most people live backwards. They believe that once they find the relationship, once someone calls them beloved, once they receive that external validation, then they will feel loved. But this is illusion. The outer can never create the inner. It only reveals it. The world responds to who you are now, not who you promise to become later. If you wait to feel the emotion until someone arrives, you postpone their arrival. But when you live now, in the emotion of already being in love, you release the resistance and activate the cause. The present moment is the soil in which you plant your assumptions. If you fill it with complaint, with longing, with the idea that something is missing, then you are planting seeds of lack. Those seeds will sprout, and you live the fruit of your inner neglect. But if you fill the now with the richness of the end fulfilled, with the joy of someone who is already chosen, then that feeling takes root, and from that root springs the world you desire. What you experience today is only the harvest of yesterday's belief. What you will experience tomorrow depends on what you choose to feel now. To live in the present from the end is not to deny your senses. It is to refuse to be dominated by them. The senses will always report what is, not what is becoming. But the now is not shaped by what the eyes see. It is shaped by what the heart accepts. The senses are followers, not leaders. They echo what you believe, but they do not define it. You are free to feel now what you wish to see tomorrow. And when you do, the law begins to move. When you live as if, you become the version of yourself who has already received. Your habits change. Your attitude shifts. You walk differently. You speak to others from a place of fulfillment, not craving, and the world takes notice, even if it does not understand why. The present you carry is magnetic. It either pulls people toward you or repels them. And that magnetism is shaped entirely by your inner state. You cannot fake this presence. It is not performance. It is identity. You either are in love now, in consciousness, or you are not. If you are, the world begins to shape itself around that truth. This is why waiting is the most dangerous emotion. Waiting implies separation. Waiting declares, I do not have. And because the now is always the moment of power, whatever you feel now must express itself. To wait is to guarantee more waiting. But to live in the end, to walk as if, to assume the reality of love now, this is to reverse the flow. You become cause, and the world must become your effect. The partner, the conversations, the synchronistic meetings, all begin to appear, not because you chased them, but because you became the person they were destined to meet. The present is where faith is tested, when nothing around you reflects your inner claim, when appearances contradict your assumption. This is the golden hour. This is the moment you must persist. To live now as if you are already in a relationship, when the phone is silent, when the room is quiet, when the world seems indifferent. That is the highest act of faith. And that faith becomes fact. The inner mood you sustain begins to rewrite the narrative of your life. It does so without struggle, without force. Reality bends not through effort, but through alignment. You must give yourself permission to enjoy now what the world says you do not yet have. That joy is the signature of possession. when you smile for no reason, when you laugh with a warmth that seems to come from nowhere, when you feel the fullness of being loved without explanation, you are in perfect harmony with the new state. That state will soon manifest. It must. Life has no choice but to reflect the mood you live by. If the now is rich, the future must be too. If the now is dry, so also the future. This is not a temporary act. This is a shift in how you occupy your own awareness. Every time you return to the feeling of the end, you deepen the groove in your subconscious. The idea becomes belief, the belief becomes fact, and it all happens in the now. Do not fall for the illusion of time. Time is only a delay between assumption and manifestation. But the act of creation is always immediate. The moment you assume it is done, it is done. What follows is only the bridge of events, and those events are guided by your continued presence in the new state. So live now. Walk through your room as if someone loves you in every breath. Cook your meals with the presence of another in your heart. Speak to yourself as the one who is chosen, adored, desired. Let the present be filled with the echoes of a love that has already arrived. The past has no power. The future only mirrors the now, and the now belongs to you. If you claim it as the moment of fulfillment, life will follow. It always does. Doubt is the only enemy. It is not the absence of the person you desire. It is not the lack of evidence in the outer world. It is the silent betrayal within. Those brief, creeping moments when the mind whispers, "But what if it's not working?" Doubt has no power except the one you give it through attention. The moment you begin to question your inner reality, you interrupt the natural flow of manifestation. You step out of the state of already having and re-enter the state of wanting. And wanting, by its nature, creates more lack. To persist in assumption is to recognize doubt for what it is, a shadow without substance, and choose to remain loyal to the unseen truth that you have already claimed. When you imagine yourself in a loving relationship and begin to act from that state, there is often a delay before the physical world catches up. This delay is not denial, it is simply the unfolding of events in time and space. But during that delay, the old mind, the one conditioned by the senses, will rise and offer its commentary. If this were real, wouldn't you have seen a sign by now? It asks. Isn't this just fantasy? The temptation to agree with those doubts is strong, especially when appearances remain unchanged. But your responsibility is not to confirm what your senses tell you. Your responsibility is to remain faithful to what you have accepted as true in imagination. Doubt is subtle. It disguises itself as reason, as logic, as caution. But in reality, it is the decay of belief. It begins in thoughts, then spreads to feelings, and finally shapes your actions. You stop living in the end. You retreat into the old self, the one who waits, the one who wonders, the one who seeks outward proof before feeling inward certainty. But the moment you notice doubt creeping in, you must return to the state you once assumed. Go back to your scene, recall the feeling, sit quietly and reconstruct the moment you felt loved, cherished, held. Breathe it in. Touch it with the inner senses. Speak from it. Let that mood become your sanctuary. The repetition of this practice builds stability, and with time, the mind grows quiet and begins to believe. Persistence is the cure to doubt. Not strength, not struggle, just persistence. The quiet returning to your desire fulfilled, again and again, without letting outer circumstances sway you. You do not need to force the world to change. You simply remain faithful to your chosen reality. When the wind blows, a rooted tree does not move. So too must your inner conviction remain anchored when appearances challenge it. The world may show you silence, but you carry the voice of love within. It may present delay, but you embody fulfillment now. To persist is to believe with such intensity that the outer world must eventually yield. Many sabotage their manifestation by giving doubt more reality than imagination. They treat doubt as truth and imagination as fiction, when it should be the reverse. The imagination is the real cause, the living force, the divine clay from which form is made. Doubt is nothing but the echo of old conditioning, memories, failures, past rejections, but none of those define you now. You are not what happened, you are what you assume now. Persist in your new identity. Let the doubts speak, but do not listen. Smile at their noise and remain firm in your inner experience. When you persist, something miraculous begins to happen. The emotional charge of doubt fades, it loses its grip. You no longer need outer proof because you live so deeply in the inner state that it becomes more real than the physical. That is when the bridge of incidence begins to form. Life begins to shift, not dramatically at first, but subtly. A message here, a smile there, a chance encounter, a strange coincidence, and suddenly, what once seemed impossible is standing before you. Not because you fought for it, but because you remain true to the unseen. Doubt is always tied to time. It asks, how long will this take? It worries, what if it never happens? But time is not your concern. Time is a servant of assumption. When you live in the end, time collapses. What once seemed far away begins to move toward you. You find yourself in situations you never could have planned. People appear, circumstances arrange themselves, all in harmony with your inner state, but none of it can happen while you indulge in the fear of delay. That fear is doubt dressed as realism. And realism is often the most dangerous form of doubt because it masquerades as wisdom. The world is a mirror, but mirrors take time to reflect new images. You may assume a new state today, and the reflection may come tomorrow or in months, but it will come, it must. So be patient, not with life, but with your own ability to remain consistent. Every time you feel the urge to panic, to question, to check for signs, pause. Ask yourself, what would I feel if it were already done? Then dwell there. That is the only place you need to live. To persist is to live above contradiction. It is to walk in the atmosphere of certainty, even when everything around you says otherwise. This certainty is not arrogance. It is quiet power. It is spiritual authority. You are not demanding the world obey you. You are aligning yourself with the truth that the world is already shaped by your consciousness. And once you persist in that understanding, doubt loses its voice. It may knock at the door, but it cannot enter unless you let it in. Stay in the end. Feel the end. Live from the end. The one who persists in assumption transforms the world without lifting a finger. Because the world has no choice. It must reflect what you have become. Gratitude is the seal of fulfilled desire. It is not the reaction to what has happened. It is the confirmation of what is. When you give thanks not for what appears, but for what you know within, you align yourself with the truth that reality is first spiritual, then material. To give thanks in advance is to declare with authority, this is already mine. Gratitude is the vibration of completion. It speaks not of longing, but of arrival. When you feel grateful for your loving relationship before it takes form, you affirm that it already exists in the unseen and that it must now appear. Most people wait to express gratitude. They wait until the outer world delivers the desire wrapped in visible evidence. They treat gratitude as a reward rather than a cause. But to understand spiritual law is to reverse this order. You give thanks before it appears, and in doing so you cause it to appear. The feeling of gratitude is the signature of possession. You do not thank life for what you do not believe you have. You thank it because you know, deep in the quiet of consciousness, that what you ask for has already been given. To act as if you are already in a loving relationship is to live in this invisible certainty. Gratitude becomes your daily posture, not a strained attempt to force emotion, but a natural expression of inner fulfillment. You begin each morning with a smile that rises not from the mirror, but from the knowing that someone loves you. You walk through your day with a heart that is already full. You speak to the world with the tone of someone whose arms are no longer empty. This is not denial of the senses. This is mastery over them. You are not pretending, you are creating. There is no faster way to shift your state of being than through sincere gratitude. If ever you find yourself slipping into doubt, return at once to thanksgiving, not for what is seen, but for what is known. Whisper quietly to yourself, "Thank you that I am loved. Thank you that I am chosen. Thank you that I am already living in the joy of shared connection." Let those words carry the weight of truth. Feel them not as a wish, but as a response to a gift already received. In that moment, you have entered the state of the wish fulfilled. And once you occupy that state, reality must mirror it. You are not bribing the universe with gratitude. You are aligning with the frequency of what you desire. Think of it this way. A grateful heart is like a completed circuit. It is closed, charged, active. When you give thanks before seeing the results, you are demonstrating your spiritual memory, that you have already seen the end in imagination and now walk in agreement with it. You no longer beg because there is nothing missing. You no longer seek because you have found. The feeling of thankfulness locks the door to worry and opens the floodgates to manifestation. Gratitude rewires the mind. It trains your thoughts to dwell not in need, but in abundance. When you move through your day in this spirit, you notice the subtle evidences that your desire is becoming fact. A compliment from a stranger, a romantic scene in a film, a friend sharing a story that echoes your own inner world. These are not coincidences, they are reflections of your new vibration. And the more you notice and give thanks for them, the more they multiply. Gratitude, when sustained, creates a loop of manifestation. The unseen becomes seen, and the seen strengthens the unseen. There is great power in silent gratitude. No one needs to hear it. No one needs to witness your thanksgiving. It is not a performance. It is a private agreement between you and the reality you have chosen. Sit with it. Close your eyes and feel the warmth of someone who adores you. Say quietly, "Thank you," as if their love is already surrounding you. Let the feeling settle deep. When you do this consistently, the subconscious begins to accept it as truth. And once it accepts it, life begins to conform without your effort. There is nothing more magnetic than a grateful heart. It draws people, it shifts circumstances, it dissolves resistance. Why? Because it is the mark of someone who no longer doubts, someone who has stepped beyond questioning into knowing. And that knowing, when maintained with gratitude, creates a path for all things to arrive. Even the delays become part of the unfolding. Even the waiting becomes sweet, because you are no longer desperate. You are pregnant with assurance. Begin each day and end each night in thanksgiving. Let it become your inner ritual. Do not wait for the partner to appear before you feel thankful. Let the thankfulness precede the appearance, and you will find that the appearance rushes to meet the feeling. You will discover that you no longer need to force anything. You simply need to remain in the emotional state of one who has already received. Gratitude will carry you when belief is tired. It will sustain you when doubt tries to return. And it will unlock the door to the relationship you seek, not in time, but in presence. Gratitude is not just a virtue, it is a tool, a technique, a key. And when used deliberately, it transforms consciousness. From that transformed consciousness, everything else emerges. The love you want, the person you dream of, the moments of connection, they are already yours. They exist now. in the invisible realm of spirit. Bring them into form with your gratitude. Live each moment as if it has already happened. Feel the joy now. Speak the thanks now. And the reality must follow. You are not manifesting a person. You are manifesting a state. This is where most people stumble. They focus so intensely on a name, a face, a form, believing that their happiness resides in one specific individual. But the Lord does not respond to persons. It responds to states. If you understand this, you are free. For while people may be unpredictable, states are not. They are ordered, governed, and obedient to the direction of imagination. And when you assume the state of being in a loving relationship, the person who perfectly matches that state must appear, whether it is someone you know, someone you once knew, or someone entirely new. The law will draw from the infinite, but only after you have fixed yourself in the correct state. A state is a combination of beliefs, feelings, and self-concept. It is not merely an emotion, it is an identity. You can desire a person with great intensity and still live in the state of lack. That state will repel the very thing you long for. You can fixate on their texts, their absence, their silence, and though you call it love, it is really fear. You must release the fixation on form and turn your awareness inward to the state itself. The question is not, where are they? But rather, who am I being? If you are being the one who is loved, desired, chosen, and adored, then the outer world must reflect that. The right form, at the right time, will step into that reflection. This is the great spiritual detachment. Not the detachment of indifference, but the detachment of inner security. You do not chase people when you are confident in your state. You no longer beg for crumbs of attention or analyze signs with anxious energy. You dwell in the end. And the end is not a person's face. It is a feeling of union, of intimacy, of peace. This is the essence of love. You seek not a particular human, but the experience of being in a loving relationship. And that experience lives first within you. When you become it internally, life reveals it externally. Imagine you are an actor cast to play a role. The script does not say who your co-star will be. It only says you are to play the part of someone deeply loved. You are not told who will play opposite you, but that does not stop you from preparing your character. You embody the mood, you study the behavior, you live the energy of one who is in love. Then on the stage of life, the right counterpart is cast. They show up not because you demanded them, but because your role required them. You see, the state determines the cast. The state determines the script. The state determines the ending. This is why you must give your energy to the state, not the person. If you build your internal world around someone else's behavior, you are building on sand. People shift, they change, they come and go. But the state, once established, holds power. If you live in the state of being fulfilled, secure, and cherished, then even if one form disappears, another will come. Life will not allow the state to be void. It must be clothed in form. It must express itself. That is law. And so your task is to identify the essence of what you desire. What does it feel like to be in a relationship that honors you? Not what they look like or what they say, but how you feel in their presence. Safe, seen, desired. Begin to occupy that inner space. Let your heart beat with that energy. Let your mind think from that place. Let your body move in agreement with that vibration. As you do, you are no longer wishing for love. You are radiating it, and love responds to its own echo. There are infinite versions of you, and there are infinite versions of everyone else. You do not need to mold anyone. You only need to change your channel. When you switch into the state of being in a loving relationship, those who are tuned to that frequency begin to appear. Those who are not fall away. This is not punishment. It is purification. You are drawing into your life only what harmonizes with your new identity. And that identity is not fragile. It does not chase. It does not fear. It stands calmly in the knowledge that what it is being is what it must receive. The form may surprise you. It often does. Many expect a specific person and find that someone better aligned steps in. Others discover that the same person returns, but now with a different vibration. Why? Because your state shifted and their behavior conformed. You never forced them, you never manipulated, you simply became, and the world rearranged. That is how manifestation truly works. This understanding frees you. You no longer obsess, you no longer wait. You rest in the knowing that the real work was never about controlling the external, it was about mastering the internal. And once you inhabit the right state, the rest is automatic. You are not here to manifest a body, a name, or a timeline. You are here to become the embodiment of love, and let that love shape the form it will take. Do not chase the shadow, claim the substance. Do not seek the image, enter the vibration. The state is yours now. The person is only the mirror. And when the reflection arrives, it will not feel like a stranger. It will feel like something you have always known because you lived it long before you saw it. You do not need to search the world to find love. You need only to become the one who is already loved within. The desire that burns in your heart is not a sign of something far away. It is a signal of what already exists for you in the invisible. When you act as if you're already in a loving relationship, you claim your inheritance. You move from delay to immediacy, and everything begins to respond. Assumption is the cause. It is the mirror that reflects not what you hope for, but what you accept as true. Imagination is the workshop where you sculpt your experience. It is there that you touch the unseen and bring it into form. Feeling is the substance of that form. Without feeling, there is no reality. But with sustained feeling, the invisible becomes inevitable. You cannot attract what you are not conscious of being. And so you align with love, not by pleading for it, but by embodying it. The power is in this moment, now, not when they arrive, not when they text, not when things look different. You change your world by changing your now. And when doubt rises to challenge you, when fear whispers of what has not yet come, you return to your assumption and remain there. The world will test your certainty, but it must conform if you do not waver. Gratitude becomes your seal. When you give thanks before you see the result, you make a sacred declaration. This is done. And finally, you rest in the deepest truth of all. You are not manifesting a person. You are manifesting a state. And when the state is embodied, the form must appear. The love you seek is not separate from you. It flows from you. You are the operant power. Become the one who is already cherished, and life will reveal what you have always held within. Remain faithful. Assume boldly. Feel deeply. And live now in the joy of already being loved. The world has no choice. It must follow.